So what is the absolute limit of human potential? It's a massive question, right? Today we're going to try and tackle it by looking at two sources you would never think to put together: the sci-fi blockbuster Lucy and a pretty deep metaphysical text called The Pleiadian Keys. And honestly, the parallels we're about to dig into are, well, they're genuinely surprising. Okay, let's just dive right in.
This quote from the movie Lucy really just sets the perfect stage. It immediately forces you to zoom way, way out, to think about our entire evolutionary journey and ask, have we really made the most of this incredible gift of existence? It's a huge, cosmic question to kick things off.
And then there's this number. This is the famous idea at the very heart of the movie's plot, that we humans only use a tiny little slice of our brain's total capacity. Now look, the actual science on this is pretty debatable, but as a metaphor, it's incredibly powerful. It represents this vast, dormant potential just locked away inside every single one of us. And that idea perfectly leads us into our first big theme. Because both of our sources, even though they come from completely different worlds, they start from the exact same place. The idea that humanity, as we know it, is running on a tiny fraction of its true power.
Okay, check this out. This is where you start to see this really wild convergence. On the one hand, Lucy gives us this biological bottleneck, that 10% barrier. But then on the other hand, the Pleiadian text talks about a spiritual and a genetic limit. It says our original 12-strand DNA was, quote, stripped, leaving us with just 2 active strands. And that act cut us off from a universal library of knowledge. So in both stories, we're basically a species with amnesia, with no idea what we've lost.
So if we're disconnected, what exactly are we disconnected from? Well, this is where the Pleiadian text introduces this absolutely fascinating concept of a planetary database of all cosmic knowledge.
They actually call Earth a living library. Just try to imagine that for a second. The planet isn't just rock and water, but it's this priceless living hard drive that contains the genetic blueprints and the accumulated wisdom of countless civilizations. It's a place that was designed for the exchange of information.
And wow, this line from Lucy, it just perfectly captures what it must feel like to suddenly plug back into that library. When her brain starts to unlock, she doesn't just get smarter, she gets access to everything. Quantum physics, cellular memory, the rotation of the Earth, it all just floods in, which sounds exactly like tapping into some kind of universal database. And according to the Pleiadian text, we're not just talking about abstract philosophy here. This library contains the literal building blocks of existence, things like the formulas to create life, the very soul of other worlds. The key takeaway is we don't just live in the library, our own DNA is the key card to access its most valuable secret.
So this all leads to the most important question, right? If this incredible potential exists, how in the world do we access it? What are the keys that actually unlock this whole system?
And here again, we see this really fascinating contrast. In Lucy, the change is violent, it's an accident, forced on her by a synthetic drug. It's a total revolution. But in the Pleiadian story, it's an evolution. It's this gradual awakening, helped along by cosmic energies from the outside, sure, but it's one that requires our conscious choice to participate. We actually have to choose to upgrade.
And that upgrade apparently follows a pretty specific roadmap. The Pleiadian text really hammers home this idea of a system of 12 as this fundamental structure. The concept is that our bodies are designed with 12 strands of DNA and 12 corresponding energy centers, or chakras. So activating all 12 strands is like booting up a dormant biological supercomputer, which then powers up all these energy centers. This creates this incredibly powerful alignment inside of us, connecting our own biology to a much, much bigger cosmic plan.
So, what happens when this system is finally unlocked? What does this upgraded human even look like? Well, this is where both stories describe a journey into abilities that seem, well, they seem almost godlike. Lucy says this right as she begins her transformation. Suddenly she can't feel pain, she doesn't feel fear or desire. All the things that she thought made her who she was are revealed to be, as she puts it, just primitive obstacles. Her personal identity just starts to dissolve as she gains this massive, universal perspective. The film gives us a really clear, almost like a video game-style progression of this whole evolution. So let's use that as a kind of map to see how these new abilities unfold, and we'll see how they connect back to that Pleiadian vision.
Okay, so at the first big milestone, 20%, Lucy gets complete control over her own body. She can manage her metabolism, just ignore pain, access her deepest memories. It's total self-mastery. And this perfectly mirrors the first step in the Pleiadian framework. You have to achieve internal alignment by raising your own personal frequency. You have to master your own system before you can influence anything else. Makes sense, right?
Then, the next leap is just stunning. At 40%, her influence explodes beyond herself. She can control other people's bodies, tap into their thoughts, read electronic signals. Now, from a Pleiadian viewpoint, this isn't about manipulation. It's about a deep understanding of the energy that connects all beings. You're not controlling them, you're just harmonizing with the entire network.
And then, beyond 60%, she starts to control matter itself. She's bending energy, building a supercomputer from her own cells, and literally traveling through space and time. And here's the critical point. This is a direct parallel to the Pleiadian idea of becoming a creator through thought, where your own consciousness becomes the primary tool you use to shape reality.
Which brings us to the final, and maybe the most important question of all. Why? What is the ultimate purpose of gaining all of this power and all of this knowledge? Professor Norman, who's Lucy's scientific guide in the film, offers this really simple, really beautiful answer. He says that ever since the very first cell divided, the whole point of life has never been about immortality for the individual. It's been about reproduction, passing on information to the next generation, making sure that knowledge survives through time.
And this is where we find the most profound parallel of all. Both stories come to the exact same conclusion. This epic evolution is not for personal power. In her final moments, Lucy uses everything she has to download all her knowledge for others to find. And in a similar way, the Pleiadians say that a fully evolved human race will start to emit the priceless data in their 12-strand DNA, sharing the treasure of the living library with the entire cosmos. So in both visions, the ultimate purpose is to give it all away.
So that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. At the end, Lucy realizes that time is the only true unit of measure. It's the only thing that proves existence. So, if our whole purpose is to pass on knowledge through time, it really begs the question, what is the most important information that we, as individuals and as a species, are meant to share?